All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're breaking down a story that is just absolutely phenomenal. We're tracking the meteoric rise of a true generational basketball talent. Look, if you follow the game, you've definitely heard the whispers, you've seen the crazy viral highlights, and you've watched the hype just totally explode over the last couple of years. But today, we're not just buying into the hype. We're looking at the hard data, the scouting reports, and the actual timeline of his journey to see exactly how Dybantsa went from a young local standout to basketball's absolute ultimate prize.
And when I say the ultimate prize, I mean literally number one. Long before he ever stepped foot on an NBA court, scouts and analysts were basically in unanimous agreement. Dybantsa was the consensus number one prospect in the class of 2025. And it's a trajectory that culminated exactly how everyone predicted, with him being selected as the number one overall pick in the 2026 NBA draft by the Washington Wizards.
But, that begs a pretty massive question. How exactly did a kid growing up in Brockton, Massachusetts, reach the absolute pinnacle of the sport so incredibly fast? What actually separates a great high school player from a true, franchise-altering superstar? Well, to figure out his destination, we really need to trace this relentless climb right back to the very beginning.
Section 1. The Rise Begins. Massachusetts Roots and High IQ.
So, AJ was just wired completely differently from day one. He was born in Boston and raised in nearby Brockton, which, by the way, is a city already famous for producing really tough, gritty athletes. He grew up in this rich, multicultural household. His dad has Congolese roots and grew up in France, and his mom has Jamaican heritage. And that diverse environment, it really helped shape his identity and this incredibly fierce competitive mindset. You see, unlike a lot of future NBA stars who just rely strictly on raw athleticism, the guys simply jumping out of the gym, AJ actually developed an advanced understanding of the game as a kid. Coaches immediately noticed his fantastic footwork, this incredibly soft shooting touch, and really sharp defensive instincts. It was that high basketball IQ paired with a just relentless work ethic that separated him from literally everyone else in the gym.
Which brings us to Section 2, dominating the prep circuit, seeking harder competition.
He didn't just sit back in his comfort zone. After starting out at St. Sebastian's in Massachusetts, he intentionally sought out stronger competition. He charted a cross-country journey, transferring all the way out to prolific prep in California. Why? Simply because he wanted to face elite-level coaching and go head-to-head with the absolute best high school players in the country. And then, for his final prep season, he packed up and moved again, this time to Utah Prep Academy, just to completely lock in on his development against top-tier competition before hitting college.
Now, to really understand why he had to leave his home state to find a challenge, you just have to look at what he did as a freshman at St. Sebastian's. I mean, these are jaw-dropping statistics for a first-year high school player. He averaged over 19 points, nearly 10 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks a game. His total dominance earned him the Massachusetts Gatorade Boys Basketball Player of the Year. Let me repeat that, as a freshman. It was a glaringly clear signal that he was just completely outgrowing his local competition.
So, he makes the move to California for prolific prep, and this is where the kid absolutely explodes onto the national radar. ESPN officially ranks him as their number one prospect. He becomes this massive viral sensation on basketball social media, with highlight reels literally breaking the internet. But it wasn't just flash, right? He backed it all up on the hardest circuits out there, even leading the incredibly prestigious Nike Peach Jam in scoring. That was the moment. That was when recruiters across the entire country definitively circled his name and said, yep, that is a future NBA superstar. And by the time he wrapped up his high school career at Utah Prep Academy, his resume was pretty much flawless. A consensus 5-star recruit, a McDonald's All-American, a standout at the Jordan Brand Classic, and a participant in the Nike Hoop Summit, he had completely conquered the high school landscape. At this point, it wasn't even a question of if a major Division I program wanted him, it was the reality that virtually every single one of them was desperately trying to recruit him.
Moving on to Section 3, a historic freshman season, choosing BYU and breaking records.
In what was easily one of the biggest recruiting decisions of the decade, he had offers on the table from all the traditional blue bloods. Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, Kansas, UConn, you name it. But he decided to chart his own path. He chose Brigham Young University, and by doing that, he instantly became the highest-ranked basketball recruit in BYU history. The expectations placed on his shoulders walking into Provo, honestly, they were astronomical.
Now, a lot of freshmen, even the highly rated ones, they usually struggle a bit to adapt to the pace and the sheer physicality of college basketball. Yeah, AJ Dybantsa did not. His 2025 to 2026 freshman stats were just staggering. 25.5 points per game, 6.8 rebounds, 3.7 assists. He shot 51% from the field, which, if you know basketball, is incredibly efficient for a high-volume scorer. He started every single game, and most impressively, he led the entire NCAA in scoring.
But if you want a single number that really encapsulates his offensive dominance at the college level, it's 43. He broke numerous freshman scoring records at BYU, just completely taking over games. But this specific, staggering 43-point performance against Utah, that truly showcased to the world that his offensive toolkit was already operating at a professional level. When the dust finally settled on his one and only year of college basketball, he had put together one of the greatest resumes ever recorded by a first-year player. He was a consensus first-team All-American. He won the Julius Erving Award for the nation's best small forward. He became the NCAA scoring champion, the Big 12 Freshman of the Year, and first-team All-Big 12. He didn't just live up to the massive hype, he completely surpassed it.
All right, Section 4, Anatomy of a Superstar, Global Dominance and Playing Style.
Before we even look at his physical tools, we really have to acknowledge his unblemished international track record with USA Basketball. Look at this run. 2023 FIBA U16 Americas, gold medal. 2024 FIBA U17 World Cup, gold medal. 2025 FIBA U19 World Cup, gold medal and tournament MVP. Winning 3 major youth international titles on the world stage firmly cemented his status not just as America's best, but as one of the premier young talents on the entire planet. He simply knows how to win when the lights are at their absolute brightest.
And that brings us to the physical profile that makes all of this possible. The modern two-way wing. At 6'9", AJ is the exact archetype that literally every single basketball team is desperately searching for today. He's capable of elite scoring efficiency on one end of the floor, while having the size and the sheer athleticism to simultaneously defend multiple positions at a really high level on the other end. Let's put on our NBA scout hats for just a second to analyze these dual threat capabilities. Offensively, he's an elite shot creator, an explosive finisher at the rim, a deadly mid-range scorer, and an absolute terror in transition. But defensively, he's just as lethal. He's a highly versatile defender with a remarkably long wingspan, and he can switch on to almost anyone. Scouts constantly compare his all-around skill set to the league's absolute elite wings. But they also note one key thing. If he continues to develop his three-point shot, he is going to be borderline unguardable.
Finally, Section 5, the next franchise cornerstone, rebuilding the Washington Wizards.
Following that sensational freshman season at BYU, Dybantsa naturally declared for the 2026 NBA Draft. And let's be real, there was absolutely zero suspense when the commissioner walked up to the podium. He was selected number 1 overall by the Washington Wizards. This selection had been widely expected for years, but now it's real. He isn't just a prospect anymore. He's been drafted to be the absolute centerpiece of the Wizards franchise rebuilding effort. The expectations placed on his shoulders as he enters the pro ranks, they are immense.
And those expectations are totally fueled by the overwhelming consensus from scouts, analysts, and front offices. They all agree that he has the tools to become one of basketball's defining players of his generation. His blend of size, scoring ability, playmaking, and that fierce competitiveness we talked about, it's made him one of the most anticipated young stars to enter the league in a very, very long time.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder as we wrap up today's explainer. Will AJ Dybantsa reach his ultimate ceiling and redefine the NBA's next generation of superstars? Look, whether he can carry a franchise to a championship is obviously going to depend on his continued growth and how he adapts to the pro game. But if his journey from Brockton, Massachusetts all the way to the number 1 overall pick is any indication, betting against his work ethic would be a terrible mistake. Keep your eyes on Washington because the AJ Dybantsa era has officially begun. Thanks so much for joining me as we mapped out this incredible story, and I'll catch you on the next one.